Here we have a HTML page that is embedded in our PHP code. In our HTML page we have a form. This form is actually going to post the page back to itself. Here we are, that's what we use, post. It's called calculator.php and that's the name of our page, so that's what it's going to post back to. We have two input boxes on our page. One's called number 1 and one's called number 2. This is to record the value that the user inputs of the first number and the second number. We also have 4 radio buttons on the page. They're all called the same thing. One's for add, one's for subtract, one's for multiply, and one's for divide. So they have different values. We have a submit button here that is going to submit the calculation or submit the form back to the page. Okay then, so let's go to the top of our page. Here we need to read what has been posted back to the page from the form. So to do that we need to find out if the submit button has been clicked, and to do that we say is set string post submit calc. This is the name of the submit button. And then we need to say if it has been submitted back, do something. If not, don't do anything at all. If it's submitted back, then we need to read two variables for number 1 and number 2. And they need to read the post back for each number. So post back for number 1 and the post back for number 2. We also need to have a variable to read the post back of the radio button. So here we have method of calc, which is going to read our cal method selected radio button, whichever, whether it was add, subtract, divide, or multiply. Okay, so let's come down and start our little PHP function here. Okay, open that, close that, PHP, and we're going to say basically function, name it something, do calculation we'll call it, and we need to pass some parameters in here, so open and close brackets. And we'll say parameter for the first number, so number 1, parameter for the second number, number 2, and the method of calculation, which is going to be the selected radio button from our form. Okay, so now we need to read the method of calculation and do different things based on what's been selected. So here we'll have a switch statement. So we'll say switch. Whoops, the method of calculation, pop that in there, and if it's the case that that method of calculation is bringing back add, then do something. If it's the case that it's bringing back subtract, then we will need to do something. If it's the case that it's bringing back multiply, then we need to do something. And if it's the case that we're bringing back divide, then we also need to do something. Okay, so now we have the switch statement made. We just do need to return some values from that as well. So basically in here for the add we'll say return, and we need to get our 2 numbers because this is what we need to do the calculation on, and put them in there. We need to put number 1 plus number 2. So if it's add, it's going to return the sum of number 1 and number 2 added together. If it's subtract, it's going to be minus number 1 minus number 2 that's returned. If it's multiply, it's going to be number 1 multiplied by number 2 that is returned. And if it's the case is divide, it's going to be number 1 divided by number 2, and that is the value that we will return. So this is our do calculation function, which brings in two values for number 1 and number 2, and it also brings in the value for the method of calculation, our radio button. And on the method of calculation, it reads with the switch statement to see whether it's add, subtract, multiply and divide, and returns the relevant values. Okay, so we do actually need to call our function from the page and set that to a variable. So we're going to have a variable called results. Let's set that there. It's going to be equals to do calculation, which is our little function. And we need to send through some variables to that, so open, close brackets. We need to send through the first number, which is the variable num1, and the variable no2. And also we need to send through the method of calc variable. That's our radio button selected. And that should then call our function and perform our calculation. But we do need to actually display that on the page as well. So we'll come down under our form and we will start our PHP and we will echo out our our variable results here onto the page. Okay. So this is our little calculator program. So let's put in a value in the number 1 box, a value in the number 2 box, and add those together. That's right, we get 10. Subtract 9 from 3. Calculate, that's 6, that's correct. Multiply 5 by 5. Calculate. And then we're going to divide 9 by 2. Click the divide and calculate. There we go. That's worked fine. That's our little calculator program. That's all for today. So all I need to say is have fun with functions.